Okay, so I was going to talk about the walking, what's called Tudong. In our tradition, it's a Thai word, which means shaking off. Uh, Tudong, walking from place to place and just carrying everything that you need on your back and going for alms, begging for food. So Tudong is yeah, I've been on Tudong for a month now. I've been wandering from place to place. I've been up on the Sunshine Coast. I've just come down to be at John's this weekend, and then I'm going to continue on. I'm going to walk from here to Mullumbimby and Brunswick Heads, Bangalore, and it's been a great experience. I've actually never been on Tudong before. As a junior monk, I blew my knee sitting in half lotus when I wasn't flexible enough, and I blew the nerve in my knee, and it was very painful, and so I never went on Tudong. It's the first time, and so Tudong is a Thai word, as I said, means shaking off. So shaking off the comforts, hot showers, knowing where you're going to sleep for the night, knowing what you're going to eat or whether you're going to eat, um, and it's actually a corruption of the word Dutanga. So it's high pronunciation of the word Dutanga. It's come to mean shaking off, and but Dutanga is a Pali word, and the Dutanga are 13 rules that the Buddha, or 13 ascetic practices that the Buddha uh, recommended but didn't make mandatory for the monks. So some people may know that monks have 227 precepts that they keep. You'll be familiar with the five precepts: not killing, not stealing, not lying, no intoxicants, that kind of thing. And the monks have 227 rules. So we're bound by those rules. They're vows that we take at ordination, and we have to, if we break those rules, it means confessing to another monk. But the 13 ascetic practices, the Dutanga, are optional. The Buddha said they were too strict, too difficult to make mandatory for all the monks. So they're things like eating one meal a day, which I've been doing on Tudong, eating one meal a day, not having a shelter, not living at the root of a tree, so not having a roof. Uh, Probably the most difficult Dutanga is to not lie down to sleep. So there's sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. Our body's in one of these four postures all the time. And so to make a determination, I'll only use three of them: sitting, standing, walking, and not to lie down at all. And so some monks make a determination to do that for some period of time. Um, I know monks who've done it for a year, monks who've done it for 3 years. And there are some traditions where you take that vow for life. You make that vow to never lie down again. Probably the most famous one is Tenzin Palmo, a Tibetan nun who spent 12 years. She had a back injury. She spent 12 years in the cave in the Himalayas. She didn't have a bed. She just had a square box to sit in, and so yeah. So they're the 13 practices. There's a whole a bunch of other ones, and so the forest monks of old would use the wandering time to practice these ascetic practices, to get out of the monastery, away from a reliable food source and a reliable shelter, and live in the wild, and challenge themselves to give up their attachment to comforts. And I've certainly done a bit of that. When I started out, I had 20 kilos, and I'm down 5 kilos. So I gave up my diary. That was quite a big thing for me to give up my diary, and in bits and pieces along the way, things you think you need when you're traveling, but after you've been carrying it on your back for 30 kilometers, you think, I don't need this anymore. You're just gonna let it go. And people have been extremely generous. It's amazing how people who are not Buddhist, my favorite story from the Tudong so far is I was in Koroi, and the people of Koroi were very generous. And I was standing outside the IGA. It took 10 minutes to fill my bowl that morning, standing outside the IGA in Koroi. And this Scottish man came along. He was in his 60s, and he came up to me and he said, he tried to give me $10. And I haven't touched money in 14 years. We're very strict with that rule in our tradition, no money for monks. So I politely thanked him for his kindness and generosity and said, but I'm not allowed to accept money. And he's like, well, why are you standing here with the bowl? And I said, I'm just collecting food for the day, the food that I can eat before 12. And he's like, oh, okay. What do you want? That's that they asked. And I was warned, it's not a rule for Tudong, but I was warned by other monks who do a lot of Tudong, don't express a preference, because you can easily offend the person. If you ask for a sausage roll and they're vegetarian, then they'll say, oh, I thought you'd be vegetarian. Or if you ask for something that's too expensive and they're thinking something, so just say, whatever you offer me will be fine. You know, I'll gratefully accept anything that you offer. And so I said that, but he wasn't going to take no for an answer. He wanted to know what I wanted. And so we had this kind of thing for a while. And then eventually we agreed on a chicken sandwich. So he went to a cafe and bought me a chicken sandwich. And he came back with 2 liters of freshly squeezed orange juice, which probably almost certainly cost him more than $10, those 2 items. And I was curious because mostly the people who gave to me were most of the people tend to be women in their 60s and 70s who are wearing kind of slightly alternative clothing, kind of slightly kind of new agey hippie clothing. That's the normal profile. And men generally just walk past and don't look at me, or they stop and tell me about their divorce or the Iran war or something, or the COVID. So many men stopped and complained about the COVID and the government, and I was surprised how much of that's still going on. People are still really wound up about that. But the men didn't give me much of anything. So I was curious about this man, and he came back with the orange juice, and I said, you know, what's your connection to Buddhism? You know, are you a Buddhist? And he said, I'm not a Buddhist. And he said, but you're the good guys. He said, I know that much. He said, there's so much conflict in the world, so much religious, you know, war and so many problems in the world. He said, but you Buddhist monks, you're the good guys, and I know that much. And just walked away. And so yeah, really magical little interactions like that. And lots of grandmothers sending their kids to put gold coins in my bowl. Get quite a bit of that, you know, standing outside the bakery, and then grandma's there with the 2 grandchildren, and then one of the boy will come running over and try to put $1 in my bowl or something like that, and then he has to go back and tell his grandmother, no, he's only accepting food, and then grandmother comes over and says, what do you want, you know, what. So lots of people offering me. It was raining a lot in Mapleton when I started. I started in Mapleton, and there was an Indian woman who offered me a cabin to stay in, because I was standing there with my umbrella in the rain outside the bakery for an hour, and she took pity on me, and she had an empty cabin, so I stayed in the cabin for a few days a week till the rain stopped. And lots of people offering me lifts. So it's been a really wonderful experience, and I didn't know how Australians would react to somebody begging for food, or whether the shop manager would come and tell me to go away. Apparently that happens a lot in France. I know a French monk who went on Tudong last year, and every Aldi store security guard come out, tell them to go away. So they found it hard to get food in France. All the supermarkets had security guards for some reason to send them away. And but I didn't get any trouble at all. I was sleeping in the parks, in the cemeteries, in people's backyard, on the side of the road. nobody ever said anything, and yeah, people helped me and fed me and took me in. Yeah, so it was really, really beautiful experience. Something I'm kind of hooked now. I'll do it every year, go out and meet people, and even got invited to do teachings like this. The Indian woman, when I stayed in the cabin, and then she invited her friends around, and I did a little guided meditation, and so yes.
Do people think you're Hare Krishna?
That's common in Australia. It's more common that people, if they ask you what you are, they generally say, "Oh, you're Hare Krishna." But I don't know if I got that. Maybe I got it once on Tudong. That's one tip I got was with the bowl is don't have the lid on because then they think it's a drum. People think it's a drum and then you're going to play some song and then ask for money. And so you've got to have the lid off and show that, yes, it's a bowl. You've got to put something in the bowl. And
yeah. But not a gold coin.
Yeah, not a gold coin. The tricky one is when people just walk past, they don't walk up to you because when you're standing there and you've got your eyes downcast and just meditating, and you feel when someone's coming towards you. But when someone's just walking past and then they just drop a coin in your bowl as they're walking past and they're talking on their phone, they just dropped it, and then that's an offense for me. That's a confessable offense. We're allowed to, if you don't move your feet, and the rule is if you don't move your feet and they take the money out, then you don't have to do the confession. But if you walk away and then change your mind and try to, that's the idea of the rule. Um, Once you move your feet, then it's a confessable offense, even if you didn't intend to receive it or anything. So yeah, I've got caught out a couple of times with that one. Where I'm just, what? Hey, what? Can you? So one guy tried to offer me in Pomona. One businessman kind of looking guy came out and did that. He walked past and tried to drop $20 in my bowl. And I was like, well, I'm not allowed to accept money. And then he said, I said, I'm just accepting food. And he's like, he kind of looked at me and he was in a hurry and he just kind of took off. And I stood there for another hour after that. And I thought, well, if I'd have taken that $20, I could have had something to eat. And I think that day I ate like those little rice crisps and a banana, and it was quite a not substantial meal that day, but yeah, so you do have to give up. You're giving up, when you don't use money, and you don't have food and you don't have money and you don't have a place to stay, and it's a lot of shaving in the public toilets, kind of doing my laundry in the public toilets. At first was quite humiliating, kind of degrading practice, but it doesn't matter, it's shaving the cold water in the public toilets, you get used to it. And one thing I did, I mean, I didn't really plan this talk, I was just talking off the cuff about Tudong, but one thing I really became aware of was the homelessness problem, because I'm going to the park, trying to find a place to camp, and sometimes, like in Nambour, it was really bad, all along the edge of the park, just tent city, homeless people, and I wasn't aware of how big a problem it was. The people have been priced out of the real estate, the rents have gone up, the property's gone up, and people in low socioeconomic strata have just been, and apparently a lot of single women and widows, or people in retired women living in vans. It's a real problem. So
maybe they need some teachings.
Well, I've been wondering, how can I even went into a couple of community centers. There was a pastor in Nambour, and I went into, he was giving out food and had showers and like a drop-in center kind of thing. And I asked him how I could help, and but you need a blue card to do anything like that. You can't just kind of start helping people, you know. So, but I wondered about the people who are doing that kind of work, or volunteers, maybe doing those kind of people, because they probably deal with a lot of trauma and a lot of kind of drug addiction or whatever. Although I was kind of criticized for that stereotype, and it's not people who are have trauma, or actually it's normal people out there. It's just totally normal. Even middle-class people who just can't afford the rent. So living in their vans and living in tents, and so yeah.
We wish you luck on the way to Bangalore.
Thank you. Yes, well, I noticed the road coming here we came off the highway. There's no shoulder. It's quite
That's
when
right.
there's no white line, and you know, if you've got a white line and a foot of bitumen, you feel a lot safer than if there's just bitumen and the grass, and especially on windy roads, and if it's an 80 zone, it's quite dangerous. There was one guy, it was an 80 zone, long straight coming out of Yandina, and it was a delivery truck. He screeched to a halt right next to me and threw the door open, and all the cars were banked up behind him. And he didn't even say get in, but it was just obvious. Why else would a delivery truck just stop in the middle of the highway in the 80 zone? He's just like, get in, threw my pack in and jumped in, and he drove me to the cemetery in New Mundy. And so yeah, so people, they do think it's dangerous. It looks dangerous, you know, when you're in a car, and I imagine someone on the side of the road, but it doesn't feel as so dangerous when you're doing it somehow.
Thank you for those teachings, guidance, and experiences, Ajahn, and I look forward to receiving some more on Sunday.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Thanks for coming out tonight, and there's still plenty of space left on Sunday for the meditation day, so if you're able to come for the whole session, 9:30 till 2, with a shared lunch, or even part of it, do come along. See you next time. Thank you.